Hello friends, it's your boy Treya, and today I am here for my BBR-D League draft analysis. So we did get into the BBR-D League, so thank you to Grandmaster D-Ray as well as all of the admins for selecting me to participate. Going into this, we had the fourth pick in the draft, so I was very excited about that. And going into this, I basically just said that I wanted to do as well as possible, but also still have fun. I didn't want to draft something super boring or repetitive. That is what my mindset was going into this, and let's go ahead and get into my picks. So up first, like I said, we had the fourth pick going into this. I mainly wanted to try to draft something that I had never used before. That was my main priority. So basically going into it, I wanted something like Blood Moon, Gouging Fire, Latios, anything like that I have not used in Gen 9 PDEX. And we were able to snag Ursaluna Blood Moon. And I was very happy to see that. Ursaluna Blood Moon fits my playstyle perfectly. I'm a huge believer in just bulky offense winning games. I am very solid with Pokemon that get reliable recovery and setup. So I'm very excited to be able to finally use this Pokemon, and we drafted an absolutely amazing team to be able to have this thing be the best #1 option in the D League. Going into my next pick, obviously since I was 4th out of 16 coaches, it was a while before I was able to pick again. And so I kind of wanted to just pick one of the best mons left available, and Sneasler just fit that role perfectly. Sneasler is a mon that I am very comfortable with using. I've used it quite a bit in the past, both in Nat Dex and Paldea Dex drafts. Fast Pokemon with U-turn are always good, especially whenever they can get in strong hitters like Ursaluna Blood Moon. Sneasler just has a lot of unspoken utility, and it just has actually more diverse. It has more diverse sets than a lot of people give it credit for, and I do think it is a very good mon. It's a very solid mon, especially next to Ursaluna Blood Moon, so I'm very excited to use that. We can run Unburden sets on it, we can run Scarf sets, Band sets, we can run Sub SD, we can run Toxic Spikes if we don't see any poison types on the opposing side. I'm very excited to use Sneasler, one of my favorite Pokemon to draft, and since it was on the board, I could not let it sit there any longer. So going into my third pick is when I was finally able to start looking around on the draft board. I was at work during the first couple picks, and so I wasn't able to look at what I wanted too much. But once I started to get in depth with the draft board, I noticed that there were a couple Pokemon that were a lot lower than I think they should be. Obviously, tiers are a subjective thing. And so I guess the people that made these tiers thought they were a little bit worse, but I think they are a lot better. So we decided to pick up 13-point Raging Bolt. I think that's just a little cheap. I think it should definitely be a 14, maybe even a 15-point mon. I think Raging Bolt is extremely underrated in draft. Once again, a mon that a lot of people think is very straightforward because it doesn't have a huge move pool, but it's very diverse in its item slots and its EVs. I think are absolutely one of the most diverse Pokemon that you can have. It's so naturally bulky. At 75 is just good enough to where you can run Scarf on it or even booster speed. And so I'm very excited to be able to use this Pokemon again. We just had it in SDA, and I don't think I used it to its full capability, as we just barely missed playoffs with arguably one of the best teams I've ever drafted. So we were able to get it again, and I'm absolutely loving this team so far. Looking at the 3 I've drafted, I don't think there's a single team that's going to be able to have one or two Pokemon that can switch into all 3 of these. Coming up next, sticking with the theme of Pokemon that I believe are steals in the draft, we decided to pick up Glastrier next, and the reason for that is this is going to be my Terra Captain. So our Terra rules, I don't remember what the point threshold is, I think it's 10. So we were able to pick one Pokemon, I believe it was 10 points and below, and it is Open Terra Preview. So before the match starts, I will have to just inform my opponent of what Terra I am, and they will do the same for me. But yeah, so this Pokemon was only 7 points. And I think Glacier without Terra is worth 7 points. So with Open Terra, I think it's one of the best Pokemon, if not the best Pokemon on the draft board with Terra. And so I feel like I could not let that thing go any lower before it got taken from me. Glacier, I feel like, fits very well with Pokemon like Raging Bolt and Blood Moon, because we are starting to set up a mini Trick Room, a little mini Trick Room side of the team with Blood Moon and Glacier, and then also Raging Bolt, who only is base 75, so it can underspeed a lot of the meta. So I'm very excited to keep moving forward with that. Glacier is an offensive powerhouse. It's got an extremely high attack stat with amazing bulk with HP, defense, and SPDF. The only thing it lacks is speed, but that's totally able to be made up for. And having Terra, we can get rid of the awful ice typing and have a more defensive typing or a better offensive typing if we so choose so. Coming up next, once it was my pick, I realized that I had no idea how this Pokemon was still on the board, and I thought it would be stupid for me to let it go. Obviously, for the 5th pick, it's coming on the way back from the wheel, so there are only 6 picks in between this Pokemon and the next one I drafted, but I could not let this thing go any further without taking it. Ogerpon Hearthflame is just a menace. It hits extremely hard. It breaks so many walls with just its natural attack stat and crazy coverage. And I think it pairs absolutely perfectly with the team that I've drafted so far. Currently, this team does look very hyper offensive, and I am very much enjoying that. And like I said, I don't think there's a single team that's going to be able to switch into these 5. I can bring these 5 every single week, and win or lose, it's going to be a very good game, and they're going to have a very hard time being able to counter this. So going into my next pick, I decided to pick up Corviknight. And now Corviknight was definitely more crucial to the team than Hearthflame was, so the fact that I let Hearthflame come on the team before Corviknight was a bit risky. Just because if Corviknight got taken, I was in a much deeper hole than if I didn't get Hearthflame, because Hearthflame was just like a luxury pick. But yeah, if you haven't noticed, this team has no removal so far. We have a fire type that cannot run boots, and we have a ice type that would prefer not to run boots. And then we also have a U-turn and a Volt Switch Pokemon. And then Ursaluna Blood Moon is resistant to rocks, but it does not like spikes very much. So we decided to pick up the best defogger in the game. Corviknight is an amazing Pokemon. I think a lot of people sleep on it. It's got a great defensive typing, being only weak to fire and electric, which get covered by my team very well so far. Raging Bolt resisting both, and then obviously we have one of the best ground types in the format. We'll cover some of the some of the fire resist later. But yeah, Corviknight, great Pokemon. It's a good pivot. We have a lot of pivots on this team, and I'd like to keep that trend going. We may see a couple offensive Corviknight sets. We have Body Press to weaken some of the steel types that Pokemon like Raging Bolt and Glacier cannot. And so on and so forth. Pretty standard Pokemon, not too much to say about it. And with my next pick, I decided to go ahead and pick up Tentacruel. The reason for that is I wanted to continue with the removal trend. Everybody knows around the middle of the draft, like the 5 to 8 range, all of the good spinners and defoggers are gone, so I wanted to go ahead and pick up one of the best ones left before it got taken. So we decided to go ahead and take Tentacruel. Tentacruel is a very good spinner. It does get knockoff to punish any spin blockers. As well as knocking off any Rocky Helmets that want to punish spin that way. We do get decent coverage. We get things like Gleam, we get water coverage and poison coverage. The only thing we're really lacking is a way to hit steel types, but I think I have plenty of ways to hit steel types between Hearthflame, Sneasler, and Blood Moon. We do get Flip Turn to get out of bad matchups right next to our already very strong Volt Turn core. So even though Tentacruel is a bit passive, just like Corviknight, we can get out of those bad matchups if we so choose so. Tentacruel is a bulky enough Pokemon to where I can run it Fizdef or Spidef. It's very good into checking Pokemon like Palafin, and it's one of the few Pokemon in the format that can take a non-resisted Dark Pulse from Chi-Yu and fire back with a lot of damage. So I'm very excited to have Tentacruel. I think it's a good fit for this team. It gives me a second grounded poison if I think Sneasler has a bad matchup. So yeah, pretty straightforward on this pick. Going into my next pick, I needed another Pokemon that was hitting on the special side. Raging Bolt and Blood Moon obviously are there. Tentacruel is a little too passive to be considered a special attacker. And then I also needed a little bit more speed because my team is a little slow. And even though Tentacruel is a base 100 speed Pokemon, most of the time you don't run speed or that much speed on it. So I decided to pick up another Pokemon pretty close to the base 100. We decided to get Zoroark. Now Zoroark is a Pokemon that I have never used in draft before. In all of my time playing draft, I have never used it, so I'm very excited to be able to finally use this and play the mind games that I love playing with people. I'm a very good mind game player, so I'm very excited to be able to play those mind games with Zoroark. Even just in prep, it's a Pokemon that is hard to deal with. It's got amazing coverage, it has setup potential, it's a good Scarfer, it gets U-turn. Yeah, it's a good dark type to pair with this team, and it's a decent special breaker to pair with the Ursaluna. Getting into my ninth pick, I was noticing that my team was decently weak to ground, and I also really just wanted to have a psychic type to pair with Sneasler and Zoroark for that offensive core of fighting Psychic Dark. So we decided to pick up Uxie. Uxie is a very underrated Pokemon in draft. I think a lot of people sleep on it. This Pokemon is going to be very solid for my team. It gives me rocks that I did not have otherwise. It gives me a Trick Room setter for Glacier and Blood Moon as well as Corviknight. It's another U-turn Pokemon, so almost every Pokemon on my team does get momentum. And Uxie is just a very strong Pokemon. It can pass statuses around with Yawn and T-Wave. It does have offensive capabilities. It has pretty decent offensive stats being mixed, and its speed being decent. It has amazing bulk, and it does get reliable setup with things like Mystical Power, which is a very good move in draft. And it's kind of hard to prep for because you just guaranteed are getting set up while still doing damage. So yeah, I thought Uxie was a no-brainer for this team once I saw it was still there. I think it fits very well with the team, and like I said, the Trick Room U-turn with Glacier and Blood Moon is going to be very good for me. Coming in with our last pick, we got the captain of the team. We got our boy Trapinch here. So Trapinch is going to round out this draft. We got a second ground type. This Pokemon is obviously very essential to the team. I cannot have this draft without it. But seriously, Trapinch, I had 1 point left over and I thought Trapinch would be funny. It's definitely the best 1 point mon available. It actually does have uses in some drafts, given it has first impression. If I could trap something like a Hoopa Unbound, that would be kind of cool. Or if I can trap any fire or steel types or electric types, it does have some merit. Even something like a Sash arena trap to catch a Chi-Yu that does not have Shed Shell or anything like that, catch a Magnezone, a Metagross, anything like that, we can potentially beat that. So I am very excited to have the Trapinch, and I will be bringing it to at least one game and hopefully trying to get a kill with it. So yeah, that is going to wrap up my draft for the BBR-D League. If you guys like this draft, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. If you think there's anything I should change about it, let me know. I am absolutely in love with this team. I think it embodies everything that I love as a draft player. So yeah, I'm very excited. We got a very stacked roster of coaches. Our week 1 matchup does look pretty good, so I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I'll see you guys for week 1. Peace.